Good evening, everyone. So, why are we here this evening? Well, there's a useful little function in Excel called goal seeking. That's why we're here. So, I don't anticipate this class being incredibly long. Hans, what are you doing? Um, maybe like half an hour, 45 minutes. So, no long haul this evening. We're going to look at two examples, though. The first one is going to be the grades thing, right? So, I'm sure that if you've been to college, that you've seen what a syllabus looks like, or at least they've been handed to you, and you've promptly filed them somewhere. Um, well, with that, on that syllabus, usually gives you a breakdown of what your grades are and what they're going to be based on, right? So, quizzes are worth so much, tests are worth so much, so on and so forth. Well, the big question mark that tends to happen over people's heads is, do they have enough? Or have they gotten far enough along in the year to actually be able to pass the class, right? Because usually the final exam is worth usually the largest chunk of the class. And in tonight's example, it's going to be 35%, right? So what do we need to do to be able to pass the class with passing grade? Well, we're going to cook up some grades here and see what we can do to figure out what we need to pass. So, let's get started. Alright. So, we're going to have a couple different categories here. So, we're going to have quizzes, tests, homework, and the final exam. After each word, I clicked Tab, and then I'm going to highlight the columns, double click between them to expand them. And now, we're going to add the weights that are going to be what each of these categories are going to be worth, right? So, I have a dummy syllabus that I'm working off of here. So we've got the fact that quizzes are worth 20%, tests are worth 25%, homework will be 20%, and the final exam being 35%. Now, I'm half decent at math, which is debatable. This should equal 100, right? If I highlight these, and we take a peek in the lower right-hand corner of our screen, we will see that the sum of what I have highlighted is 100%, which means that I didn't miss anything. And Excel also gives you these other metrics, like the average of 100 across four numbers is 25% or a quarter. There's a total of four numbers there, right? So in our case, we just wanted to make sure that it equals 100%, and it very much does. Very nice. So, we got that cooked up in there. And then we need some test grades. So, we're going to do 10 grades each across all the different categories, right? So, what we can do is we can type some grades. Right, so let's say that we did 77, a 91, 65, 71. I'll pick a couple other numbers out of a hat here. Right, so that should be approximately 10. Oh, got an extra one. Huzzah! And like I said before, that little guy down here, super important. I checked to make sure I had 10, and I looked at the count, not the sum, because it counted them, and I have 10 things selected, which means I have 10 grades. Very nice. So, with that, I could come up by hand the other grades, right? I don't particularly care what they are for the example, so I am going to have Excel make us some numbers for us to play with. So the nice thing with Excel is that if you want something fairly random, you can ask Excel to do it for you. It's only so kind of random, but for the level of randomness we need, it's good enough. So I'm actually going to put a function in here, and we're going to cook up the rest of our numbers we're going to play with. So I'm going to do the equal symbol, and then rand between. And what that function's going to ask for, it's going to ask for a bottom number and a top number. It's going to be the two ranges that this ends up looking through, or excuse me, that it cycles through. So I don't want for us to have done worse than a 60 on our test, or in this case, yeah, I'm in the test column. And a top being no more than 100, because in this case there's no bonus, right? And I click enter, and it's going to put a number in there. Now, if I wasn't particularly fond of that number and I wanted a different one, on my keyboard, I could click F9. And it changed it. It's 76 now. I can keep doing that. And it will continue to change that number, cycle through that given range we have. So, I need some more to play with, right? So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to drag that formula down. Something important to note. As I continue to use that function, whether I type it, or whether I copy and paste it to use it again, the numbers that are generated by that will continue to change. And you'll see that. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to actually type it this time. Rand between. We'll do the same thing at bottom of no less than a 60, no more than 100. And when I hit enter, lo and behold, the other numbers changed in the column. So I'm going to drag through. Now, as I continue to work in the workbook, these numbers will continue to change. I don't want them to keep doing that. So, now that we have a number to play with, we want it to stay that way, right? Because there's no reason for this as we keep going. Like, I'm pretty sure even if I just type a value, yeah, and doing anything in the workbook will cause that to refresh. And those numbers will keep changing and rotating. So, we don't want that. Let's fix it. So, I'm going to highlight the numbers that we've cooked up here. And with them selected, I'm going to right click on them. And I'm going to copy them. Now, as you can see in the formula bar up here, there's a formula in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this as values right on top of where we're working. The formula is going to disappear, and then the number that we last made will be in the box. So let's do that. We're going to right click, paste as values as the one with the little 1, 2, 3 on it. And then I'm going to click escape because I don't need the highlightation anymore. And now, if you look at the formula bar, these are now just numbers. And it's not going to keep rotating. I can click F9 on the keyboard, doesn't do anything. I could type more stuff, it doesn't change. So if you just want to cook up some numbers to play with, that's an easy way to do that. There is the rand function, which will cook up a number. It doesn't accept anything. And the thing about that is that, like in our use case, that's not incredibly helpful because we want it to be between a range. So that's why I use the rand range instead of just the rand function. Okay. So, I'm going to save by hitting Control S on the keyboard. And for you, all the lovely people who like to click on icons, we'll click on the save icon too, because why not? Alright, so we've got some test grades to play with across our quizzes, our tests, and our homework. I'm not going to make anything for the final exam because we don't know. We haven't taken the final exam, so we don't know what we've gotten on it. But what we do want to know is where we stand so far in the class. We also want to figure out at a minimum of what we need to pass and get through the class. So, one of the things we need is our grading scale, so we can have an idea of what we need, right? So we're going to say that an A is 90%, a B is at least an 80, a C is at least a 70, because that's that threshold, right? So now we know off of our syllabus our different tiers that our grades can fall into, right? So that's just a thing that we can now look at and have an idea of at least where we need to stand to pass, right? In your syllabus, it would say that, you know, to pass the class, to get a C, it's like at least a 70. Some professors restructure that, and they'll do like maybe 72 or 74. It all depends. Very important to read your syllabus. Case in point. But I digress. Let us play with our numbers here now. I'm going to expand these a little bit more. Let's make it a little wider. Okay. So, we know that the quizzes are worth 20% of our grade. So I'm going to make a header here that is 20% of your grade. I almost spelled that right. There we are. And then to save myself some typing here, I gotta copy that. And then we've got 25% of our grade. What I'm doing right now to do this is I copied the text by highlighting it and then pasting it while still editing the cell I'm in. So for homework, I'm going to type 20, the percent symbol, a space, and Control V. And that saves me from having to type it. And then we've got the final exam, which is 35% of our grade. Okay. I put these down. Gonna insert another cell because I meant to leave myself a little bit of extra space in here. Okay. So, 20% of our grade is all of these quizzes averaged together. And then we take 20% of the average of all of these, right? So, we're going to use the average function to do that. We'll do an equal symbol, the word average, and then instead of me clicking through each of these cells, I'm actually just going to highlight the range by clicking in the first cell, dragging down, and it highlights what we're going to use. So it's A4, a colon, A through A13. And you can see that because the coloring is added as well. I'm going to close that parenthesis, click enter. And there we are. Now we're going to use that same function across all of these others. And to save myself some clicking, I'm actually just going to drag that formula across. Oh, I actually don't need it in there. It's a divide by zero error because there was nothing in the cells. They're all empty. Okay. So now we're going to pop this out and we're going to grab the 20% of our grade from our quizzes. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an equal symbol. We're going to take the average of all of those test grades. We're going to multiply that by our 20%. So from quizzes alone, out of 100% that's possible, this is the first 15% of the grade. And we're going to use that same logic to cook up these other numbers. I'm just going to put a 0 in there for right now, because I know all in all I'm probably going to make Excel a little mad here with what I'm up to. I'm going to drag this across. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of formatting down here. So we're going to merge the center, and this is going to be what? What do you need to pass? We're going to add a little formatting to that. And I'm going to merge the center of these, and I'll do the total formatting. Inside this cell, I'm going to link it to this cell. I'm doing equal symbol and clicking on it. Just so I can bring it down here. Okay. So now we've reached the point that we now know so far, out of a possible 100, I highlight these, we're at a 51 out of a possible 100. That's pretty rough. Let's see if there is a possibility that we're going to pass. So, how do we do that? Well, this is the part where GoalSeek comes in. So, what we're going to tell Excel is that we want... Oop, I missed a part. I forgot we have to sum these together. So I did sum, highlighted them. Okay. Alright, so this is what our grade is currently. So clearly, you could not just walk out of the class without taking the final exam at this point. Because as you can see it right now, we're failing. We're at a 51. We need at least a 70 to pass the class. So, the way GoalSeek works is that we tell it what number that we want to change based on let me pull up the dialog. It's a little easier if I do it that way. Yes, so we're going to go data, what if analysis, and then GoalSeek. So, our set cell is going to be our grade, because this is the cell we want to set to at least a 70, right? That's what, if there's a possible chance of getting a 70 on this exam to pass the class, this is where we need to show up, because that's what our grade is currently, with a 0 on the final exam. We want our to value to be at least a 70, right? That's our goal to pass the class. And that's going to be by changing what we get on the exam. So let me bring this up a little bit closer so you can see it. Let's partially cover the screen. Scoot that a little bit. Okay. So our set cell is our grade currently. We need at least a 70 to pass the class. And then we're going to change the fact that we currently don't have a grade. I'm going to click OK. now, Excel's done some stuff. GoalSeek ran, and it found a solution to our problem. We can see right now that our target value is 70, and it found exactly that, which means not only is it possible to pass the class, it found an exact match, right? So if we look at it, I'll click OK here. To get a grade of at least a 70 in the class, which is passing, the final exam number, it changed. It changed it to be at least a 54 you'd need to get on the exam, because no professors usually do partial points, so we just round this up to the next point, which is actually what we could do down here on what we need to pass. So if I remove these extra digits by clicking the remove decimal here. Oh, nope. There we go. So, you need at least a 54 on the exam to pass the class. And you could have spent some time to try to bounce back and forth and try through some different numbers to try to find that. But the nice thing is that Excel allows us to be able to play with the numbers and drop in at least what we know so far, and then use GoalSeek to figure out the one thing we're missing. So, say that we want something higher. Maybe we don't want to just pass the class. Maybe we want to try to get an A. Let's see if it's possible to get an A. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go back up to Data, What If Analysis, GoalSeek. Now, my set cell is still going to be the grade, right? Because this is what we currently have in the class, assuming that we get at least a 54 on the final exam. But let's shoot for the stars here. Let's see if we can get at least a 90 by changing what we get on the final exam. Now, since I used the random function, I don't know what's going to happen, but it doesn't matter, because Excel is going to run through the math and tell us whether it's possible or not. So, I found a solution, but we have a problem. If I click OK, what do we need to get on the exam to be able to pass? At least 110%, or in this case, rounded up 111%. So we're not getting to the A with our current set of grades. Maybe we could shoot for the B. I think that there's a good chance that we could probably do that. The B is at least an 80. Okay, Excel ran. At least a B in the class puts us at least an 82% on the final exam to be able to do really good in the class. Now, absolute highest a B is an 89, right? So if we try to go right up against the roof here, because we already knew that the 90 wasn't possible, but we can actually just work backwards from that to see what would actually be a reasonable thing, right? So we're going to choose the same stuff, and I'm going to put our 2 value in as an 89, click OK, and let it run again. And we can see right there that we still have to have over 100. So that's not possible either, right? So what if we try to go for like an 85 in the class in total? Aha! So interestingly enough, there you are. You can see at least he can get that for 100%. Now, obviously, if I want to know the highest grade I can have, I can just put in this box up here 100. Which means that if I get a perfect exam, or excuse me, a perfect score on the exam, then my grade will be an 86.22 in the class. That's not hard to figure out. You can just drop that in there and just go. But if you're trying to find something that's in between or a specific value that you don't know, then it's a good use for GoalSeek. So I'm going to save that. And now we're going to look at another example to use this function. We are going to look at the down payment for a car. So I'm gonna make a new sheet. Have a little water in here. Alrighty. So there's two things. Well, there's a couple of different things that people think about when it comes to buying a car, right? There is the cost of the vehicle, right? And there's also the rundown of how long the term of the loan is. Some people might not even care about either of those two things. It might just simply be, can they afford what the monthly repayment is? Because if the amount you need to pay every single month is too much, the rest of it doesn't really matter. Now you're going to hope that whatever you're purchasing is going to be, good enough quality that it stays working over the course of you paying for the loan. But that's a conversation for another time. So there's two things we're going to try to cook up here. We're going to try to figure out what amount of down payment we would need to reach a certain monthly repayment. That's what we're going to start with here. And we got one other thing we're going to toy with. So let's work it out. Okay, so we are going to look at the car price. And in this example, we're going to say the car is $24,000. And on my home ribbon, I'm going to apply the comma formatting and chop off the zeros, just so we have that nice number to look at. We're going to have our down payment. I hit tab there. For right now, I'm just going to put a 0 in here, just because we need to be able to play with that. And then this is going to be our car less the down payment. We're going to play with a fixed interest rate, which just simply means that regardless of whatever the cost of the loan is, it'll be that fixed percentage over the course of the entire life of the loan. So by paying early won't save you any money, because there's other loans that are available out there that they have different terms. In this case, this is just a flat percentage. That's it. Obviously, if you were working with a loan that had those different variables in it, that you'd want to cook that and bake that into your copy of your goal seek, trying to figure this out. But for this example, we're just going to keep it simple. Okay, and then double click between these two to expand that out. Okay. So let's cook this out a bit here. So the car less the down payment will just simply be an equal symbol, the cost of the car, a subtraction symbol, and the amount we're putting down. Clicking at her. So far, the down payment's 0, so it's still $24,000. And then we need our fixed interest rate. So we're going to do the cost of the vehicle less the down payment multiplied by 0.03. Now I could have put the 3% in its own cell and did the multiplication based on that, but since this is a fixed interest rate and I don't have any interest on... Yeah, I don't have any interest. Ha! Yeah! Oh god. Oh, the jokes are terrible. I'm not changing that over the course of this example. I'm just going to type it in the cell. I'll click on her. And then our total loan is going to be our fixed interest rate. Well, excuse me, our car less the down payment plus the interest. Now, in a real-world example, you would also have the sales tax and any other fees from the state. So naturally, if you're actually going to try to do this for real, do yourself a favor, research where you live and make sure that if there's any additional cost to buying a large ticket item like this, that you have an idea of what to expect. But in this example, we live in a place where there's no taxes and it's just interest. So we're just giving money to the bank. Nobody else is making money out of this. Basic example. Yes. Okay. So we're going to knock off these zeros because we don't need them. Click, click, and click, click. because we're just playing with round numbers here. Obviously, if you had real numbers with decimal points, you would keep them. But I don't have any. Okay. Enough about me boring you with that. Alrighty here. Alright, so we also are going to have here our repayment schedule. So we're going to have the different amounts here. So we're going to have 1 through 6 years. This is the cool thing about Excel. I love this. So I typed 1 year, and if I drag to the right, you can see the word 6 in that autofill. If I let go, it incremented the number for me, so I didn't have to keep typing year again and again and again. And these are all in the same cell, mind you. It's not a separate thing. So it just knew what I wanted. Because what is Excel good at? Recognizing patterns. It's a big pattern kind of thing here. Excel's no different on it. It's very nice. Okay, so how many months are there in a year? Well, in my planet, it's 12. A simple calendar year is 12. So, 2 years is 24 months. Now if I highlight these two and drag more to the right and let go, it knows that I'm incrementing by 12, and will cook up the rest of the months for me. So that we now know that a 1 year loan would be 12 months, and extended all the way out to 6 years would be a 72-month loan. So we now know that we have our monthly repayment that we need to figure out. So our monthly repayment, if we're paying monthly, that's what we're going to do in this example. So that means that in the case of the 1 year loan, that means that the bank is going to give us the 12 months to pay off the entire cost of the vehicle. So the way that's going to work is we're going to do an equal symbol. I'm going to take the total cost of the loan and divide it by the amount of months and click on it. Now, the way I have this formula currently built to give us our monthly repayment is not going to work when I drag it, right? I didn't do something. I'm purposely not doing it so I could show you. This is such a simple thing to miss, right? I'm going to drag this formula. What happened? They're not numbers, they're dashes. Well, I click in one of these, and I click back up into the formula bar. The highlighting on the cells will tell us what we did wrong. Look at what happened. 3 years is 36 months. But what did I divide it by? Nothing. I divided it by nothing because you know what happened? It moved. It moved into D5 when the total cost of the car is in B5. Well, why did it do that? Well, if I hit escape and I click on this other cell, you'll notice that it's just one more over. And if I keep looking, what it did is it moved the formula over so that it would look at every single one of these month by month. But it also moved the total cost of the car loan. But that field's not supposed to move. Well, we didn't tell Excel that that wasn't supposed to move. We need to do that. In Excel, I've showed this a little bit with the conditional formatting when we add colors to stuff. It's called absoluting a cell. And what that does is it tells Excel that that particular row or column does not move. In this case, the column and the row of the cost of the total cost of the loan doesn't move. We have to absolute this cell to tell Excel, it's staying put, don't mess with it. So I'm going to click back into the number that worked, go back into the formula bar. Now, as I said, if you look at B5, or if you just read the formula bar, it says B5, right? If we take, I'm going to get this a little closer so you can see it a little bit better. So we're looking at year 1, right? And there is our B5. I'm going to put dollar symbols around the B on both sides of it. So I'm going to do dollar symbol, the B, dollar symbol, and leave the 5. So now our formula is equal symbol, dollar symbol, a B, a dollar symbol, a 5. and then divided by E2. Now, as you'll notice, nothing changed. The coloring didn't change. The formula itself is going to calculate the same. And you click enter, it's going to be the same number. Here's where it's going to be different when I go to drag the formula. I got real numbers. Why do I have real numbers now? Well, if I click in the cell here, what happened? Well, it moved over to the year column like I asked it to, but it stayed put. It planted B5 right where it's supposed to be. So that we told Excel, that field's not moving. Don't mess with it. That's exactly what we did. So if I click on the end here, bada bing, bada boom, we have business. So, we know this is our monthly repayment schedule now. And nice box border around that. And this is our money. I can format it as money. Why not? Alright, so. Okay. We now have everything we need to start figuring out what we can afford. Right? So we can see right now, with this laid out as it is, a car that's worth $24,000 with putting no money down. Just that means I walked into the bank, I signed the paperwork, they gave me the keys, and I rode off into the sunset with the checks, with the cost of the bills that will soon be coming. If I wanted to pay that off in a year, I'd have to pay $2,060 every month for a whole year, 12 months. That's insane. Now, if I spread that out as far as I could go, because usually banks don't usually go more than 6 years, but every financial institution is different. Or if it's a credit union, I don't know. Money's math, banks do banky things. I'm here to do a simple example. Case in point. This would be $343 spread out over 6 years. Or 72 months. Exactly the same thing. But now let's say that I wanted to have my repayment to be $200 a month. Right? So, there's two things we can mess with to have that $200 a month repayment. We either need to put money down on the car, which reduces the cost of the loan, which also means that that's additional interest we won't pay, or we buy a cheaper car. Because if you buy a cheaper car up front without putting anything down, you can still hit your target, but then you need to know how much car you can actually afford with that budget, right? Like I said, though, you have to remember that there's other things involved, like taxes and other things that you need to know for your particular state, province, country, whatever planet you may live on. Yes. In our example here, we're going to look at the down payment first, right? So I want this to be $200 in the span a month over 6 years. So let's go back up to data. What if analysis? And go to goal seek. I'm sorry, let me do that again with you being able to see the whole screen. Data. What if analysis? Goal seek. Okay, we have our nifty little box now. So, our set cell is the cell that we want to reach the target. So in this case, in 6 years, I want this to be $200. So my to value is $200. By changing the amount of money we can put down, as it stands right now, if we don't put anything down, it's at $343 a month. Click OK. It took a second there. But that's the thing. Excel actually runs through the numbers to figure out what's an appropriate solution. And click OK. Now, that is an insane amount of money to have to put down, right? I would have to pay slightly less than half of the car up front to have it be $200 in repayment. Let me check my numbers. What a moment. Fixed interest. No, no, that was correct. Yes. Okay. Just wanted to double check myself. So, if I wanted this to be $200 over the course of 6 years, that's a really long term for a loan. That's a lot of money, right? That, as most would probably figure, it seems to be a very unreasonable amount of money to put up front. Because if you have an extra 10 grand, that you can afford to put that on the car, then you would likely probably be able to afford more than $200 a month over 6 years to finish paying it off, right? So let's do something a little bit more reasonable here, right? So you already saw me run it. We're gonna run it again. Let's say that we, instead of $300 a month, let's do like $350, right? So I'm gonna pull up the GoalSeek menu again, and we're gonna have that same 6-year mark highlighted. Let's say we want a $350 repayment by changing our down payment. That's peculiar. I came up with a negative value. Huh. This is one of those things that even though GoalSeek is good at coming up with numbers to work with, obviously negative money would not apply well to this example. That doesn't do as much good. So this is why actually one of those things that I like the GoalSeek function, but you also have to keep in mind that what it gives you may or may not be valid for your particular working example. Let us say that over the span of, I don't know, let's play at the 3-year mark. And we want like a $300 repayment. Right, still another one of those really big numbers, right? So, like I said, you can play with this, and the nice thing is that if you want to look at different loan terms, like let's say I want to repay in 2 years, right? So my set sell is the 2-year, and my to value, we'll say we want like a $400 a month payment. And just like that, you can see like it'll cycle through the numbers with you, right? And you can see that again, you have to pay an exorbitant amount of money up front to be able to afford that. So maybe if we're trying to hit a $200 a month repayment, maybe we make the car cheaper. Like maybe we try to find something that's a little bit more reasonable to work with. So I'm going to reset the down payment to nothing. And let's go with the assumption that we can't put anything up front, right? We want to be able to come off that lot with the $200 a month over the course of a 6-year term, right? Well, we now need to figure out how much car we can afford with that, right? So let's go back to our what if analysis and let's change this up a little bit. We're going to change our... We're going to still look... Because we're still looking at the monthly repayment, right? So this is... The set cell's not going to change. It's either going to be one of these, right? We're looking at the 6-year term. And our to value is still going to be that $200. But we're going to change a different cell this time. We're going to change the cost of the car. Now, with the cost of the car selected, I'll let it run through the math. And then found an exact solution. And if we look at this, check this out. $200 a month over 6-year period, 72 months. With nothing down, we can afford at least $13,900 and change worth of car. That's with 3% fixed interest. And again, no taxes or any other governmental fees involved. Just simply out the door with just that interest. It's possible, right? Over the farthest that the repayment could be. So, GoalSeek is incredibly helpful, and like we had in the grades example here, it's good for being able to find stuff. No, not everything it spits out will work for what you're trying to do, which is why you kind of need to still kind of know what you're looking for. Like in the example with the car, a negative amount of down money is not a valid answer. It is, mathematically speaking, a correct answer, but not for what we're trying to do. Which is nice that it's something that can help you locate something that you're trying to figure out, you know? In the case of our final exam, I'm just going to run this again because I can. With the amount of grades we have here. Oh, our set sells this one. You can see push comes to shove that with the right framework, it's pretty easy to figure this out, right? Now I could change up all these numbers, right? I could pull up that random function again. Random between. Well, let's say that we can allow ourselves to bottom out here. And no more than a 90, right? I could reprocess all these numbers across the board here. I'm going to copy it, paste it so it doesn't keep changing. And now I've got completely different grades to look at. And I'm going to rerun my GoalSeek. I still want to be able to pass. And with completely random numbers I just reran, it's still possible to pass this class, but now with this set of grades, I need at least a 93 on the exam to pass. So, the nice thing is that once you have your cells and your formulas laid out, like in this one, we didn't do anything too crazy, right? It was just simply the average of all of our available grades, what percentage makes up the actual exam, and then get cooking. So it helps. You know, if you're trying to figure something out here, push comes to shove. Not everything that you can do in Excel needs to take an exorbitant amount of time to set up and break down. You know, you could toss all of your stuff in there, play with it, and then have an idea of like where you stand. Because if you're trying to hit a certain dollar amount, you could do that. But having an idea of what you can afford also helps. With that, that's GoalSeek. Alright, so we're kind of just shy of an hour, so that wasn't too bad. Haven't bored you all to death yet. Do you have any questions from anyone? Okay. Well, with that then, we are going to conclude